Hey everyone, Curse Deck Builder here, making our way to 10,000 decks assisted, and here we are with Vannifar, Evolved Enigma, our second donation deck for the week, coming from Shirok. Thank you so much, Shirok, for supporting the channel. Shirok says, let me open it back up. Shirok says, hey Cursed, I've seen this new Simic Commander with a new take on an old design, and I had to take a whack at it. I decided to go with dropping big threats cheap, then bringing them back on their huge side. I recently completed the deck, so it's still fresh, and I was wondering if there were any issues you can see or any holes in the current build that could be fixed. Absolutely. And in terms of deck building restrictions, they say budget is an extra 150 on the current build. Well, as always, I don't think we're going to be hitting that budget limit. You know me, I like to add in cheap cards for a very long time until we have nowhere else to go. And I think the deck is really great, so I'm really excited to see this Cloak deck in action. If you'd like to take a look at the deck list we're talking about today, or if you'd like to submit your own deck list to me so that I can make a video assisting your deck, please check the video description down below. So who is Vannifar Evolved Enigma, and why are they our commander for our Cloak deck? This could also be a cheat and play deck, or I don't know if I would call it a show and tell deck because it's just you, but a very, very cool deck. So Vannifar Evolved Enigma for 4 mana with a green and a blue, legendary, elf, ooze, wizard. Says at the beginning of combat, your turn, choose one. Either you cloak a card from your hand, putting a card face down as a 2/2 with ward 2, and then you can pay its mana cost if it's a creature to flip it face up, or to put a +1/+1 counter on each colorless creature you control. And she herself is a 3/4, which is also a very impressive stat line for 4 mana, which is really nice. Puts her right out of bolt range, which is something, as you might know, I think about a lot. She is very, very cool, and we can just go straight to the deck to kind of explain how she works. Because our main kind of combo is we're going to cloak some really, really good cards. Mainly permanents, mainly high-cost cards, such as, from Eldrazi to Omniscience to Zendikar Resurgent, and then we're going to use a bunch of flicker effects to flip them back onto their front side. Now, this isn't universally true. There's a few we don't want to flip with blinking, such as Euro or Phyrexian Dreadnought, but both of those creatures are benefited by having a very, very low mana cost that we can just flip them the intended way. So, all in all, I really, really like this deck. It is straightforward, it has a very powerful game plan, and it has, a nice rhythm to it that I really care about. It also isn't unstoppable, you can pressure the commander out, but, unlike previous 4 mana commanders that cheat creatures out, we don't need to go to attacks. We do go to attacks. We don't need to attack with our commander, we just need to go to attack to start the process. And I think I really like that. I find it to be a very, very strong way to play this. So let's look at the curve. The curve doesn't really tell us much because there is a large number of cards starting at 5 and going up that aren't going to be played, with their mana cost. They're going to be cheated into play, and therefore we kind of can look at them in a different light. Or they can be reduced like Great Henge. So the majority of the deck is in the 3 and 2 slot, especially at the 2 slot, which I do like. I like a nice and low mana cost deck. And so in a lot of ways, I find this deck to be very, very good. So as I've been asked, we're going to do a little bit of nitpicking. What are the cards and threats that I feel not as interested in? Well, the first one that I think of is Ixidor Reality Sculptor. And kind of the reason I don't like this card is that, the obvious reason to use this is that when he's face up, we get to use 2 and a blue to turn our creatures face up. So we immediately get them on the permanent side. And so this kind of replaces a blink effect in a way. But what I don't like about this is he's 5 mana. So the more convenient way to get this creature out is to put him down as a face down creature and then flip him face up. But if we were flipping him face up, we've spent a flip that we could have just spent somewhere else. So as a mana sink, I kind of see in the late game this being an interesting flip or card to play. But early on, this is just kind of a dud. And so I don't particularly like this. I think this is a card we can cut for sure. Another one I think I saw, where is it? Oh, I can't find it. But I will say that something like Star Whale I like, but I think it's a little weaker. I think one of the things is that there's a lot of really, really good targets here, but I think over time you're going to want to kind of narrow the number of targets, right? We've got such a large collection of them, and they do so many different things. A lot of them are also mana oriented, which I do like, that lets us power out the next few threats, but I think we're missing a few that are card draw oriented, right? Ancient Silver Dragon is really, really cool, but we need to connect in order to get that. And though we can blink on an opponent's turn so the Ancient Silver Dragon comes to us without Summoning Sickness on our turn, that's still kind of a tall order. Whereas I would still want something like, and I didn't suggest this, I should have, but like Lord of Change, or that'll draw you 3 cards, or there's another Sphinx that's much cheaper that draws you for each opponent you have. That both of those are draw 3s when they ETB, which is really, really nice. I also think if you wanted to, you could play Peregrine Drake, as Peregrine Drake and Deadeye Navigator together are an infinite combo. But I didn't think that was the direction we're going into, and so I didn't want to talk too much about them. Looking a bit further, I like all of our instants. I like our sorceries up here. I do like Swift with Boots. Feels like we're playing the wrong one. I feel like we should, and I'm going to suggest that in my suggestions, I feel like we should play Lightning Greaves. One of the main ways we lose is if our opponents, pressure Vannifar out of the game. So I want that instant, like immediate satisfaction of putting Shroud on our commander without having to pay mana for it. So with that in mind, Swift with Boots is very strong. Thran Lens, I believe it's here because our commander's second ability puts a +1/+1 counter on each colorless creature we control. Unless there's something else that I'm missing, I feel like this is not a good card. Think about it like this. In order to start using Vannifar's second mode, we need to not have anything worth manifesting in our deck. And so if we're doing that, in our hand. So if we're doing that, the question becomes, what do we want to get out of those +1/+1 counters? So generally, if you think of our cards all being face down, it's pretty good because our 2/2s with Ward 2 start becoming 3/3s, start becoming 4/4s. That's very, very strong. However, if we're like, oh no, our Coma Cosmos Serpent isn't colorless, but we don't really need it to be a 7/7, right? We kind of want it to, it doesn't matter as much. Or likewise, something like Apex Altasaur, which also is a 10/10, doesn't really matter if it's an 11/11. If it's coming close to death, we just blink it. We don't put more counters on it. So I find that this is kind of an unnecessary inclusion, that when we want to put +1/+1s onto our creatures, just the colorless ones will be fine. The only alternative I would say is if you're really interested in that direction, perhaps you could just go into Eldrazi or Artifacts and just lean into that side as opposed to kind of making it as an afterthought. Then looking at our enchantments, I think Wilderness Wreck is the one that really just kind of catches me off guard. The rest are really, really strong, I think powerful and make sense. Wilderness Reclamation is just kind of there. We don't have that much, though it's nice to be able to gain additional mana for our instants. It's not that much mana. It's not one of those that untaps on each upkeep. It's just one untap. So it feels a little clunky, and I'd rather not have that, honestly. The rest I think are generally good. Melnador is another one. I guess what we'll do is we'll quickly look over the 4 drops, because that's the card I was looking at earlier and I lost it, is Meneldor, Swift Savior. These cards are our 4 mana cards, and I say often that we don't want 4 mana cards that kind of, like when I have 4 mana commander, we don't want 4 mana cards because they're going to conflict and they're going to slow down our deck because we want to cast one and not the other. Our deck is 100% all in on casting Vannifar, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't be a little picky on our 4-drops, even if it's guaranteed that Vannifar is our 4-drop. So a lot of these are really good, like Displacer Kitten, Thassa, Vannifar. These are, well, obviously Vannifar commander, and these are very, very strong. Meneldor, our Swift Savior is what I'm going to call it, is good, but it's slow. We need to deal combat damage to get the effect, and much like our dragons, I don't usually like that, whereas instead, you know, something like Thassa just triggers every time. Araxi-Mendez feels a little clunky. Like, this is a card that we tend to play just as a land, as a 4 mana ramp into a land, and I don't think we tend to really care for it as a creature. Just a 12/12 is just okay. I will say one of the benefits is, if people don't know, you play this as a face down card, and when you flip it, it doesn't gain the slumber counters, so you just paid 4 mana for a 12/12 that can attack right away, which feels really, really good. But I don't even know if that's worth it, just compared to everything else you could be doing in this deck. It is really strong, but this deck is also very, very strong. And with that in mind, I feel like it's just one of the weaker flips. So I would like to cut that. Displacer Kitten is just so strong. And then looking at Wilderness Wreck, I've already talked about it. So I think those could be cut pretty easily, you know, opening up our 4 mana slot a little more. Looking at your sideboard as, like, I'm assuming these are cards you're thinking of. Cryptic Coat is cute. I do like it. I think it's interesting. I would play this for sure, I think. For those who don't know, Cryptic Coat allows us to, when it ETBs, it just cloaks more cards. And I like having yet another way to cloak, especially in artifacts, which we will get back to. I like another way to start cloaking our creatures. The other one that's in here is Scroll of Fate, which is very strong. As a 3 mana, just start manifesting cards. So having both Cryptic Cloak and the Scroll is just really, really good as backups to our commander. Ewit is great. I think you'll never be sad with Ewit, especially when you use Ewit with Displace or Ghostly Flicker, much like our 4 mana. Oh, it's not actually here. Our Arcanomancer, I believe it is, that will return Displace or Ghostly Flicker back into our hand and still get another trigger of a blink out of it, is a really nice kind of grindy combo. But since we don't want to play 4-drops, Ewit just does that much better, and we're much happier to do so. Experiment 12, I just got this deck from the RC, from Winning Tickets, and I like this card. I don't like the disguise mechanic, honestly. So looking at it, I think it's really good. However, it feels a little clunky once again. If this gave trample to all of our creatures, I would really, really like it. But the difference between Ulamog being a 10/10 and a 20/20 is very, very negligible. This is much better with, like, Blightsteel Colossus with that native trample. And I think that's really it. Maybe our Tidespout Tyrant, because it has flying. Star Whale has flying. Having it at 16/16 is very good. Our dragons somewhat. But that's kind of it. Like, I think it's kind of win more to have Experiment 12 in there, so I think it's easy for me to say don't put it in. Golden Agrossi. Exile the creature that crewed it, return them. Interesting. I think this is neat. I think it's at 4 mana. You still need it to attack, so all of these together make me not really interested in it, but it is a neat mechanic, and I do like that. Timeless Witness, I like another Ewit, but once again, we are at 4 mana, so I don't love it. Primordial Mist. Interesting. This is an interesting one. I like the fact that you still get a manifest every turn, and that you can exile your face down permanent so you can cast it. So if you exile, like, low mana like blink spells, you can use this to cast those blink spells. So I do really like this. I think this should be in here. I think it's really nice to have yet another way to be slowly blinking our creatures, slowly like manifesting or cloaking our creatures into play. It's nice that it's an enchantment, so it's just a different mode of doing this. So, and it is end step, so you get it right away. So I am a big fan of this. I'm liking the build of this deck, and I think this is the best way to be doing it. So having another, like to cheat creatures in, so having another way to do this, I really do like. So you should play this for sure. Seasons Past just feels a little cute. I don't think we need this here. I think like just with their instance, it's pretty easy to get that full collection. I don't see any fetch lands, so getting that 0 mana is a bit tough, but I do like, it is cute. I think I would just like, you know, a straight up draw spell if we could have it. Even Harmonize at 4 mana I think is fine. I think this is just a little overdoing it and a little unnecessary. Eldrazi Conscription, I also think is a bit overdoing it. This is an 8 mana card. I do like the idea that when you blink it, I believe you can immediately attach it. I believe that's how auras work, but I could be wrong about that. That being said, I just would rather it be a creature. I would just rather it just be on an empty board, come in as this huge threat, and you'll be much, much happier. So those, oh, I do have one more thing I want to touch on. I'm just checking the time of the video, and that is our lands. Let's bring up the thing I opened up. So our lands are a bit rough. We are playing 26 basics. We can do a lot better than that. I know I can see in this that we're clearly avoiding playing any basics, any lands that come in tapped, but I think we can just take that kind of, you know, take the hit and play some tap lands that I think are very strong. The ones that I feel like immediately we're missing is things like Dreamroot Cascade. Here, let's move it here so I'm looking forward. Oh, that immediately moved it. There we go. So things like Dreamroot Cascade that comes in if you have 2 or more lands. Rejuvenating Springs is already in there. Let's see, what were the other ones? Grabbing things like Exotic Orchard, it comes in untapped, taps for every color. Waterlogged Grove, that's our Horizon land. And then just grabbing, like, you know, the Survey land, the Scry land, just the both creature, Tangled Islet, Tangled Islet, which is just a forest island that comes in tapped. Myriad Landscape, things like that. Just having a few more things that will grab both colors. A bunch of the blue-green tap lands are really nice. Fetch lands if you so want. I think you'll just do a lot better. Just 26 basics just feels really, really tough. Even if we're like not really fairly casting a lot of our cards and our deck is mainly base blue, I still think, you know, that's just far too many basics. We can just do a little better, so we should grab those. Okay, let's go into my additions. The first one, oh yes, the first one is Generous Ent. In the same vein as in like looking at our lands and then looking at lore, I liked the addition of Lorien Revealed. Generous Ent is still like just a very, very good creature to be blinking into play, and just a very good early game to need that forest or anything with the forest subtype card with its forest cycling. This is just really easy to put in. I really like it. I think you'll have some success with it. All right, going into some more substantial additions. So Fabricate. I really want you to have just another way to grab these manifests or these other ways to cloak. And Fabricate allows us to both grab the Scroll of Fate, and it lets us grab Cryptic Coat. And I really, really like that. I just want more ways to ensure if that our commander's out of the game, we can go and grab them. But of course, as Fabricate is a tutor card, we can also use it to grab something like Conjurer's Closet, which is a turn, every turn a blink. So with these two together, we have 2 halves of the combo, and would you look at that, we can also use it to grab Blightsteel Colossus, go to combat, and then cloak a card. What could it be? Love it. I really, really do love it. I think that Fabricate grabbing all 3 parts of our combo is a very, very strong card. Now, there's other tutors you could be grabbing, I think, that would do similar things, but having, you know, this one card that grabs all 3 parts is something I really, really do like. After that, Omarthus, Ghostfire Initiate, is a very, very interesting card. it works. It is a weird one because you never want to manifest it or cloak it, because when it flips, it comes in as 0/0. But as we know, the second you put that first +1/+1 counter, you're very, very happy. But, you know, the way this card works is you play it as a 1/1 for 2, then you go to, and if you have a few more cloaked cards, you go to combat, you put a +1/+1 counter on all your other cloaks. This creature will gain a +1/+1 for each other cloaked creature, or each colorless creature that gets it. It becomes huge, you let it die eventually, and all of a sudden, you get to manifest like, 6 cards. I really like this. I think it's fun, I think it's strong, I think it is, like, if we were playing the Lens as a backup card for this kind of strategy, we should play this instead. It's just going to do much better. Worst case scenario, you can just pump a bunch of mana into this creature and just play it, regular, and try to, get a few attacks in, lose it, and get a few manifests. So I think it's an easy inclusion, and I like it very much. Another one that's interesting to me is Release to the Wind. So this one is notable because it works a little different. This is a card that allows us to exile a creature and then cast it for its mana cost. Now, there's a few cards that this combos with. I don't think any of them are in your deck in the moment, but they're cards that you want to use their cast triggers. Actually, the Eldrazi, right? We want to use these on the Titans. I knew I put this for a reason. So things like Ulamog, things like Kozilek, and if you were to put the other versions of these cards, you could get more of these benefits. But having Kozilek manifested and then using Release to the Wind to not only get Kozilek flipped, but to draw 4 cards is very, very cool. So I do really like that here. It is weaker than some of your other 3 mana blinks because it only blinks 1 card. There is some kind of mechanics to it that I do like. I would recommend maybe thinking about this because it opens up the door for a few other types of cards to cloak and reveal. Trail of Mystery is something I feel that can be played. It really does depend on exactly what your setup is, but I still do think sorry, I'm reading the second half. Yeah. So we want this for the first half, right? Yeah, okay, sorry. I mixed up its abilities. This is why I wanted this. So it says whenever a face-down creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to ramp. You put a land directly into your hand. That's not as good as on the battlefield, but I still think it's worth it because this will quote-unquote draw you a bunch of cards over the game. And since cloaking a creature is free off of your commander, you get the benefit of just each combat the Trail of Mystery and your commander is out, you're going to get away with getting a card here and there. Now, there is that argument that this card is kind of win more, this doesn't do anything without your commander or your other things out. But to that, I suggest the deck really doesn't do anything without those things out, so I think it's fine. This works pretty well. That second clause, I don't think you really care about, but when it triggers, it might be nice. Here's another kind of tutor card that I do like, Shared Summons. We don't really have a lot of draw cards, and I think this is one I do particularly like, because it's 5 mana, it's 5 mana draw 2, so it's like divination, but we're drawing for specific cards, and allowing us to grab, 2 really, really powerful creatures and start immediately cloaking them is really nice. But we can also use this to grab utility creatures, such as, Ewit, or, Euro cards that we don't mind just casting regularly, Displacer, Kitten, Thassa. So it gives us a lot of kind of, variability and usability in a card like this to kind of pivot into the plan that we want. Same thing with Fabricate. And what I do like about it at instant speed is because we're holding up so much mana for our blinks, we'll be able to go and grab that card and hold up that mana without seeming we won't waste it. We can just always use Shared Summons when we have the mana if nothing has happened, and I really do like that. Lightning Greaves, I think I talked about this. I just prefer it at 0 mana to immediately equip it to our commander. I think that's a good call. Myth Unbound is a card I really like in green decks that are dependent on their commander. So Myth Unbound halves the commander tax as long as it's out. Your commander costs 1 less for each time it's been cast. So instead of going from 4, 6, 8, you go 4, 5, 6, 7, which really, really helps casting Vannifar and fighting the hate. I will also note that the secondary clause of drawing a card every time it goes back is really, really strong. And this just came to me. It doesn't work in this deck, but I do I do really want to clone this card. I want to make a deck where I make copies of this card. This is interesting. Okay, I'm going to keep that in mind because this is a card that gets much, much better every time you cast it. Every time you have a copy of it. Cool. Cool. Okay. But here, I think it's just very, very strong. I think you'd be very happy with it. It's not too expensive, and it keeps Vannifar in play. And what's really interesting is it's not one of those effects that it gets worse if you draw it later or early. It doesn't really matter. Once you play it, you get the effect, and you're very happy. Okay, this is one I'm really interested in, and this is Synthetic Destiny. So this was a card that I got out of... I forget which blue-white deck I got it out of. I believe it was the Foretell deck. I could be wrong. Let's find out. This was... I could be wrong. Okay, doesn't matter. Let's go back. All right. Synthetic Destiny is a card, whenever I played it in like Blink decks or anything like that, I was always just so impressed with what it does. And I think this is actually the kind of deck that can really benefit out of it. So Synthetic Destiny says, you exile all creatures you control, and at your end step, you just kind of polymorph, right? You get rid of all of your creatures and you turn them into the creatures off the top of your deck. Except for this does all of your creatures, and it puts a bunch of creatures in play. And so traditionally, this is just really good with tokens or creature decks that have blinks, but it's always held back by the fact that if you don't have all good big creatures, you're going to hit some duds, and you're going to be giving up, you know, since you exile all your creatures, you're giving up some cards that maybe you don't really like. However, this deck is made out of bombs, and you have the very important ability of turning like lands in your hands into 2/2s, which is just really strong, and all of a sudden you get to get away with the fact that you're turning a bunch of lands that are on the battlefield into the best creatures of your deck. If you can reasonably get, I don't know, like 4 manifest creatures or cloak creatures that you don't really care about, maybe you lose your commander, maybe your commander never came out, and you just slam Synthetic Destiny, you can get like a really good top 4 creatures and just basically win the game from there. So this is a card I really like, and I think you should play it. That's the whole thought. I have no downsides. I really like this. I think it's a fun finisher card for a deck like this. Then some protection. I think Slip Out the Back is just kind of important in a deck like this. Just the ability to continue to protect Vannifar. It's cute that there's a +1/+1 counter, but you just want to phase her out. Keep her till your next turn. And what I do really like about this is if someone's doing this on your opponent's turns, you get to phase out until your next turn, which is when she trigger anyway. So it's not like other versions of this card where you're going to miss not having your commander around. The fact that she's just gone doesn't matter. This one also caught my eye, Slippery Bog Bonder as a protection spell, and I think this one is really good. So it is 4 mana, which is not great, but something that it does here is that it is a ETB creature, and our deck really likes ETB creatures, so by flickering it, we can get a lot of benefit out of it. It's flash, it has hexproof, all of these are really nice. But what it does is it puts the hexproof counters on target creatures, and then you can move around counters. Let's forget that last text for a second, we'll get back to it. But as I mentioned before, creatures keep their counters when they flip face up, so you can preemptively put counters on certain manifest or cloak creatures this is more for manifest than cloak, because cloak already has the protection, but you know, full on give it hexproof, and then immediately, or later, when you flip it, the creature will maintain its hexproof counter. So certain creatures that you don't mind paying the full cost for, or you want to take advantage of, such as like Euro or something else, having hexproof on it is really nice, and being able to keep that creature for longer will be good. However, if you're just blinking this creature or playing it fairly, you can use this to protect Vannifar, or even more, you can use this to protect like your Eldrazi Titans or other really big creatures, and the opportunity cost for it is honestly just very low. I really like this here, and I think this is very interesting. I did look at some other hexproof cards, but I really wanted this because I think it just really vibes with the deck very well, so I do recommend this, and I think it would be a good addition. And that's it. That's all I have to say. I think this deck is in a really cool place. This is since I did just pick up all of those cards that are Manifest or Cloak, it does like speak to me. I have a lot of these cards as well, and I do like just dropping really big bombs. And I have been thinking of blue-green as like a new player deck, and I do like that this is, you know, this is a much more, though it is a complicated deck, this is a really, really fun deck. It is a deck that, like, you know what you're doing and you're playing big creatures. So I think it's very, very fun. So it's very attractive to me. I think you've done a really good job. Thank you, Shirok, for sending this my way. After this, I think the long-term kind of things to do with a deck like this is to kind of get a little more control-y, get a little more card draw, and slice down the list to like a list of maybe 5 to 10 creatures and use like tutors or other ways to get it into our hand, especially when we think of cards like I can't remember right now, but there's a 3-mana creature that tutors for a 6-mana or higher creature. I believe it's 6 mana or higher, could be 7. Cards like that are really good ETBs and blinks that replace, you know, just generic 5-mana creatures we want to blink with just better creatures, so we can just guarantee blinking the same creatures every game. That would be my long-term goal, but as it is now, I really do like this deck. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to play. And honestly, tell me how it plays, because this does look really fun and it is very attractive to me, that I might want to put it together. All right, thank you so much, and good luck. Thank you so much for watching. This video is brought to you by viewers like you and people on my Patreon. If you'd like to send me another draft of this deck, or any deck, there is a link in the video description down below. And if you'd like to make your deck one of my donation decks I work on, there is a link there too. Finally, if you'd like to like, comment, subscribe, I would be very appreciative. It helps the channel quite a bit. Thank you, and good luck in brewing and building.